Good morning, everyone. I remember the day the world held its breath. I remember the quiet. I remember the sky that looked normal, even when we all knew it wasn't. My name doesn't matter. What matters is what I saw, what I learned, what followed. This is my story, and I am telling it slow because I want you to feel every moment the way I lived it. On December 19th, 2025, I sat outside my house with a small radio and a cold drink and a shaking hand. The world was watching the sky, but the sky did not care. I looked up, hoping to see something, anything, a flash, a sound, a sign, but the sky stayed empty. The news said the object called Three-Eye Atlas was passing by the Earth, a strange visitor, a traveler from far away. Some people said it was a rock, some said it was a comet, some said it was a machine. I did not know what it was. I only knew the world felt different, like a story that had just begun, even though everyone said it was over. The object moved quietly. It made no noise. It sent no message. It just passed by at a huge distance, 270 million kilometers. Far, but also close enough to make every scientist hold their breath. When nothing happened, the world relaxed. People laughed again. News people folded their cameras. Schools reopened. Life continued. But something in me stayed tight, like a rope pulled too far, like a question with no answer. I didn't know it then, but the scientists were not relaxing. They were not sleeping. They were not done. They were only beginning. 2 days later, I sat in my room listening to the newest reports. A soft voice on my old radio said, "New data has arrived." I leaned closer. My heart thumped. The radio crackled. "The object is smaller than we thought," the voice said. "Only about 1 kilometer across." I blinked. 1 kilometer? That wasn't big. That was tiny compared to the huge tail and the giant cloud around it. How could something so small carry so much dust? How could something so tiny stay whole while shaking off huge waves of gas? I didn't understand, and that scared me. Scientists tried to explain it. They talked about ice turning to gas. They talked about heat from the sun. They talked about pressure and jets, but then they said something strange, something that made my skin prickle. "It should be breaking apart," one scientist said. "It should be falling to pieces." But it wasn't. It stayed whole, solid, strong, too strong. A normal comet would not survive that much stress. It would tear apart like soft bread. So why didn't this one break? I didn't know. The scientists didn't know, and sometimes not knowing is the scariest thing of all. The next piece of news came from Professor Avi Loeb. I knew his name. Everybody did. He was the man who once said another space object, called Oumuamua, might be artificial. People laughed at him then, but nobody was laughing now. When I heard his new idea, I dropped my pencil and stared at the radio. He said, "What if Three-Eye Atlas is not just something to study? What if it is something we can use?" Use? Use how? The radio continued. "It is moving at 60 kilometers per second, the voice said. "The fastest object near Earth. Faster than anything humans have ever built." I whispered to myself, 60 kilometers, every second. That speed was impossible. Too fast for rockets, too fast for us. But the professor wasn't scared. He was excited. "What if we ride it?" he said. "What if we attach something to it and let it carry us out of the solar system?" I sat very still. The idea felt huge, like a door opening to a place we had never been. Ride it? Like a train? Like a cosmic bus? My mind spun. The professor said Voyager 1 would take 30,000 years to reach the distance of the nearest stars. 30,000. More years than all of human history. But Three-Eye Atlas could get much farther, much faster. It was a train already moving. All we had to do was jump on. It sounded simple. It was not. To catch an object that fast, we would need rockets stronger than anything humans had built. We didn't have them. So the professor gave another idea. "We don't have to land on it," he said. "We can write on it." "Write? On a comet?" "We can fire a powerful laser," he said, "and engrave a message onto its surface as it flies by." A message, a mark, a tiny scratch on a giant traveler. It sounded strange. It sounded silly, but it also sounded beautiful, like carving your name on a tree that will outlive you by 1,000 years. Then came a darker thought, a thought I did not want. What if the object was not a natural rock? What if the jets of gas were not gas? What if they were something else? Something controlled, something planned. What if the object was a machine, a ship, a probe? I swallowed hard. My room felt smaller. If it was a machine, then the venting was not random. It was a burn, a push, a correction, like a driver turning a wheel. The object was not wandering, it was steering, it was aiming, toward Jupiter, toward a point in space so exact that it felt impossible. The news said it would pass Jupiter on March 16th, 2026, only 53 million kilometers away. That sounded huge, but in space it was a tight thread, a needle, a small opening hit perfectly. Too perfect. My hands shook. I whispered, "No rock can do that. No rock could aim like that. No rock could time a path so precise. Unless it had help, unless it had a purpose, unless it was alive in some way." The radio then talked about signals. The Allen telescope array had listened to the object for more than 7 hours. They found 74 million signals. I froze. Millions? But most were noise. Satellites, phones, Earth stuff. The scientists filtered everything out. They removed all noise and found only 211 signals that came from the direction of the object. 211. They studied them. And then they said, none are strong enough for follow-up study. But then they said something else. Something quiet. Something small but sharp. If the object is transmitting, they said, the transmitter must be between 10 and 100 watts. 100 watts. The strength of a light bulb. A whisper. A soft breath. Not a shout. Not a call. A private message. Meant for someone else. Maybe not for Earth. Maybe not for us. And then I realized something. Jupiter. A giant planet with a giant magnetic field. Like a huge radio tower. A cosmic relay. What if the object was heading there to send its message home? Not to Earth, not to humans, but to something waiting far away. My heart thudded. My mouth felt dry. If it was sending a message, what was in that message? What had it collected? What had it learned? Scientists then said the object was dropping fragments. Fragments? Pieces? They said the fragments were ice. But they didn't know for sure. If the object was shedding pieces right as it flew past Earth, then maybe those pieces were not accidents. Maybe they were released on purpose. Maybe they were probes, tiny ones, hidden, dark, some falling to Earth, some staying in orbit, some waiting. Waiting for what? I did not know. I didn't want to think about it. But the weird part was the meteors. People saw slow orange fireballs falling through the sky. Not fast like normal meteors. Slow, steady, almost controlled. Then came the GPS glitches, the satellite drift, the quiet warnings, and I knew, deep inside, that something was here. Not the big object, not the main body, but the fragments, the small ones, the ones we could not track. It felt like 3i Atlas did not leave us alone. It left us pieces. Pieces that were falling. Pieces that were landing. Pieces that might not be pieces at all. And through all this, the world stayed quiet. Government stayed silent. No official warnings. No big announcements. But the rumors said they were thinking about hitting the object. Stopping it. Destroying it before it reached Jupiter. But nobody said what would happen if we attacked it. Nobody said what the fragments would do. Nobody said what came next. And that is where part 1 ends. This was only the beginning, the quiet part, the first breath, the part before the fear and before the truth, the part before March 16th, 2026, the part before Jupiter, the part before everything changed. The days after the flyby felt strange. The world tried to move on. People went back to work. Kids went back to school. News stations talked about sports again. But inside me, something stayed awake. A small fear, a quiet question, a feeling that the story was not finished. Because the more I listened to the new reports, the more everything felt wrong. One morning, I sat by the window with my notebook open in front of me. I tried to write down everything I had heard, the size of the object, the impossible strength, the fragments, the weak radio signals, the strange meteor showers, and of course, its path to Jupiter. Every time I wrote the word Jupiter, I stopped. I stared. I wondered, why there? Why so perfect? Why so exact? Rocks do not steer, comets do not aim, but this object did. At least it looked like it did. 3 days after Christmas, I heard another update. This one came from a small science live stream where the host spoke softly with worry in his voice. He said, "The non-gravitational acceleration of the object is increasing." I wrote the words in my notebook. Then I read them again. Increasing. That meant it was pushing harder. Not slowing down, not drifting, speeding up. You don't speed up unless you have somewhere to go. I took a slow breath. My chest felt heavy. Later that night, I lay awake in my bed listening to the wind slide past the window. I whispered to myself, if it's a machine, who sent it? The question stayed in my head like a small fire that wouldn't go out. My thoughts drifted to the fragments that had split off. I thought about the orange meteors, the slow ones, the weird ones. I thought about the pilots who said their GPS cut out. I thought about the satellites that dipped lower for no reason. And in the dark, with no sound around me, I whispered again, what if something stayed behind? The room felt colder. 2 days later, I saw something strange myself. I stepped outside in the evening to take out the trash. The sky was pale blue, turning darker every minute. A single orange streak moved across the sky, not fast like a shooting star, not bright like a rocket, just slow, soft, almost quiet, even though I couldn't hear it. It drifted across the sky like it was choosing where to go. I froze. My breath stopped. It didn't break apart. It didn't burn out. It didn't disappear. It simply kept moving until it slipped behind a bank of clouds. I stood there for a long time before going inside. I didn't tell anyone. Not then. I wasn't sure they would believe me. The next morning, the news was filled with stories of more fireballs, late-season Geminids, some scientists said, but the people who actually saw them said something different. They moved too slowly. They didn't break. They were orange, not white. They came from behind us, not from ahead. I circled those lines in my notebook. If something catches Earth instead of hitting Earth, it means it is moving with us, beside us, almost as if it came from the same path we came from. And what else was in that path? 3i Atlas. The next update came from a government official, a short message, cold, careful. There is no danger to the public. I stared at the screen. People only say no danger when there is something to worry about. My stomach tightened. I turned off the screen and sat in the dark for a long time. I tried to calm myself. I tried to think clearly, but the world felt different now, like the air around me was holding a secret. A quiet one, a dangerous one. A week later, scientists released a report about the tail of 3i Atlas. They said the gas cloud contained cyanide, a poison, a deadly one. I held the paper in both hands as I read. The solar wind will push the gas away, the report said. It will not reach Earth. But then the scientist added another line, a line that made me shiver. This is true if the released objects cannot maneuver using technological propulsion. I read it again, slower, if the objects cannot maneuver. But what if they can? I closed my eyes and felt my heartbeat pound in my chest. If the fragments are machines, the solar wind does not matter. They can go wherever they want, I whispered. Where do they want to go? I didn't want the answer. Meanwhile, people online were talking about something new. They said their phone maps were glitching, their compasses were spinning, their drones lost control without warning. Some blamed the weather, some blamed companies, some blamed nothing at all. But I remembered the meteor I saw. The slow one, the orange one. I remembered the fragments the scientists mentioned. And I wrote in my notebook, maybe they're not falling. Maybe they're spreading. Another science group published measurements of the object's path. They confirmed that its aim toward Jupiter was exact, too exact, as if it wasn't just moving through space, as if it was following a map. I stared at the page for a long time, then I asked myself something new. What if Jupiter is not the destination? What if Jupiter is the relay? The thought made the room feel smaller. 3 days later, my TV flashed with a breaking news alert. The headline said, "Scientists propose defensive options." Defensive. Not scientific, not curious. Defensive. My throat tightened as I read the words. They talked about kinetic impactors, about hitting the object with force, about stopping it before it reached Jupiter. But why? Why attack something that was leaving? Unless we were scared of what it would send back. I whispered, "We're trying to stop the message." I sat down slowly. My legs felt weak. If the message was bad for us, we needed to stop it. But if the fragments were already here, what would happen if the main body was destroyed? Would the fragments wake up? React? Do something? I didn't know, and neither did anyone else. Then came the rumors about a laser. A giant one. A laser meant for a different project called Starshot. But now some people said it might be used for something else. Not to send probes, not to push sails, but to hit 3i Atlas. To burn it, blind it, stop it. A weapon. My hands felt cold as I wrote the word war. A quiet war. A hidden one. A war we did not understand. Later that night, as I sat in the dark, I realized something. This wasn't just a space story, not anymore. The object had passed Earth. The scientists were arguing, the governments were preparing, the fragments were falling, the signals were whispering, the path was narrowing, and the date was getting closer. March 16th, 2026, the day it reaches Jupiter, the day something will happen. I didn't know what, but I could feel it. Something was coming, something big, something soon. One evening, as I sat alone in my room, the radio made a soft sound. A static pop, a crackle. Then a scientist's voice came through. "We believe the fragments released near Earth may be larger than previously estimated." I leaned close. "Possibly 1 meter," he said. "Possibly more. 1 meter. Not dust. Not ice. Not harmless. 1-meter objects could survive the atmosphere. They could land without burning. They could reach the ground. I swallowed hard. The scientist continued, "These fragments are not behaving like normal comet debris." My heart thumped. "They are moving too slowly." My breath caught. "And they show signs of controlled descent." Controlled. Not random. Not falling. Controlled. I felt my skin prickle. Something was here. Not in space. Not far away. Here. On Earth. Right now. After that night, I couldn't sleep. Every sound felt different. Every shadow felt deeper. Every breeze felt colder. Sometimes late at night, I stood by the window and waited to see another orange streak. Sometimes I did. Sometimes I saw two. And sometimes I thought I saw something even stranger. A soft flash with no thunder. A small glow too low for a star. A movement too steady for a plane. I wrote everything down because writing was the only way to stay calm. But even writing stopped helping. Because now the report said something new. Something worse. Something final. The scientists calculated the direction the object was heading after Jupiter. Past Saturn. Past Uranus, past Neptune, past Pluto, into the dark, into the Oort cloud, and beyond, toward a place called Epsilon Tauri. I had never heard that name before, but once I did, I could not forget it. A star, 146 light years away. Old, large, bright. A star with a giant planet. A system with dust and material and maybe more. A place where something might live. A place that might be the home of the object. My hands shook as I wrote the words, "It's going back. Back home. Back to report, back to tell. Tell what? Tell who? Tell them about us?" The thought made my heart pound so hard it almost hurt, and I realized the truth. 3i Atlas did not come to visit, it came to collect. And now it was leaving with everything it learned. And we had only a few months to stop it, or to follow it, or to understand it, or to fear it. That was the moment I understood something. Deep and quiet. This story was not about the past. It was not about the flyby. It was not even about the fragments. This story was about the future. A future racing toward us at 60 kilometers per second. A future that would reach Jupiter on March 16th, 2026. A future we could not escape. A future we were not ready for. I did not know that the last weeks before March would change me. I did not know that every day would feel heavier than the day before. But that is how it went. Slow, strange, quiet, and also full of signs that most people did not want to see. The first sign came one cold morning in January. I walked outside and saw a long white line drawn across the sky. At first I thought it was an airplane. Just another jet trail, nothing special. But then I noticed it wasn't straight, it was curved. Too curved, almost like it was following something, chasing something, or being pulled by something. The line bent in a slow arc that made no sense. Airplanes do not fly curves like that. Rockets do, missiles do, or things trying to reach something fast and far ahead. I watched the line fade as the wind tore it apart. Someone was trying to hit something, trying and failing. The second sign came from the ocean. Ships on the Pacific reported losing contact for hours. Their radios went silent. Their compasses swung in circles. Their maps froze on screens. One ship said its engines shut down for no reason and then restarted as if someone had pressed a button from the sky. People laughed online. They said it was storms, sunspots, broken wires. But storms do not restart engines. Sunspots do not bend compasses in perfect circles. I stared at the ship captain's voice as he spoke on video. He looked tired, scared, confused. He said, "I don't think we were alone out there." The way he said it made my skin prickle. The third sign was the worst. Small metal pieces started appearing in strange places. In fields, on rooftops, on mountains, floating in rivers. Tiny things, black, smooth, cold. People picked them up thinking they were junk, but when scientists tested them, they found something they could not explain. The pieces were not metal that humans used, not from our factories, not from our mines, not from our machines. They were made of a strange mix of iron and carbon and something else they could not name, something not from Earth. I held one in my hand once, a small black shard like a broken tooth. It felt wrong, too heavy, too smooth, too cold. I dropped it quickly. It didn't sound like metal when it hit the floor. It sounded like stone, but not a stone from our world. Then the sky changed. At night, I could see faint streaks moving across the stars. Slow streaks. Red streaks. Not airplanes, not meteors. Something else. Something in orbit. Many of them. Moving quietly like insects in the dark. Like watchers. Like surveyors. Sometimes there were 2, sometimes 3, sometimes more. They never blinked. They never flashed. They never made sound. I wrote in my notebook, "They are not leaving. They are spreading." By February, the scientists finally spoke openly. They said the fragments were showing non-natural behavior. That was the soft way to say it. What they really meant was they are moving on purpose. The fragments were adjusting. correcting, matching Earth's orbit, matching Earth's speed, as if Earth was the target, or the destination, or the place where they were supposed to go. I read the report twice. Then again, I felt a cold deep inside me that no blanket could fix. Then the government made an announcement, not a public one, not on TV. But it leaked anyway, a single page from a meeting. A plan to hit 3I Atlas before it reached Jupiter. A plan to fire a powerful laser when it passed a certain point. A plan to stop the message from being sent. The paper said it was urgent. It said it was necessary. It said it was the only chance. When I read those words, my breath caught. If the message was dangerous, we had to stop it. But killing it might not save us, because the fragments were already here. I tried to sleep that night, but I kept thinking, what if the fragments were like eggs, like seeds, waiting for a signal, waiting for a command, waiting for the mothership to finish its job? If we destroyed it, would they wake up? Would they change? Would they do whatever they were made to do? I didn't know. Nobody knew. But the fear sat heavy in my chest. A week later, I saw something I cannot forget. I woke up because of a strange hum, low, deep, buzzing through my window. I stepped outside barefoot on the cold ground. The sky was glowing orange in one spot, a slow-moving fireball but not falling, hovering, just hanging above the hills like it was watching. The glow pulsed, soft, then bright, then soft again. I whispered, "Please go." It drifted away after a few minutes, silent, slow, like it had finished looking at something. I stood outside until the glow vanished. My feet were freezing, but I didn't care. I just breathed and tried not to panic. After that night, I checked the sky every evening. Sometimes I saw nothing. Sometimes I saw one slow spark. Sometimes I saw many. But every time, I felt like something was coming closer. Like the sky was full of eyes, watching, waiting, learning. By March, the countdown began. March 1st, 15 days left until Jupiter. March 5th. 11 days left. March 10th. 6 days left. Every morning I turned on the radio and listened for updates. Every day the updates felt worse. The object was accelerating, still, pushing harder, as if it wanted to reach Jupiter faster. Scientists said it was unusual. I said it was planned. Rocks do not hurry. Machines do. On March 12th, the government finally admitted they were preparing a directed energy attempt. A laser strike, a shot from Earth, a shot across space, a shot at something we did not understand. Some people cheered, some people prayed, some people hid. I just sat by my window and watched the sky. The moon looked pale, thin, small, and I wondered what the object was thinking. If it could think, if it cared, if it knew, if it was afraid, or if it had already finished its job. On the night of March 14th, 2 days before Jupiter, something happened. Something big. People across the world saw a bright flash in the sky. Some thought it was lightning, some thought it was a meteor, some thought it was the laser, but nothing was confirmed. The flash was quick, white, sharp, then gone. The next morning, the official report said nothing. Silence. No answer. No result, no explanation, but scientists noticed something strange. The object's path had shifted, just a little, a tiny bit, but enough to mean something hit it, or something tried to. I held my breath as I read the update. We had taken our first shot, but we didn't know if it worked. March 15th, 1 day left. The whole world seemed frozen. People stayed indoors. The streets were empty. The sky looked gray even when it was blue. I couldn't sit still. I paced. I wrote. I stared out the window. At night, the hum returned. Not outside, not from the hills, from above, from the sky. The stars felt wrong. Like some of them were moving too slowly, or blinking too strangely. I whispered, "Tomorrow." It didn't feel real, but it was. March 16th, 2026. The day of Jupiter. The day the object would pass close enough to send whatever message it carried. The day the world held its breath again. I sat in front of my radio, hands shaking, heart pounding. The broadcast began. "This is the Jupiter Relay Watch," the scientist said. "We are monitoring 3I Atlas as it approaches." The room felt cold. I could hear my own breathing. 53 million kilometers, the scientist said. "Approach confirmed." I closed my eyes. I waited. I listened. Every second felt like a heavy stone falling inside me. Then the voice on the radio changed. Soft, shocked. "We are detecting something." My eyes opened. I gripped the radio. "A burst," the scientist said. "A radio burst." My heart stopped. "It is low power," he said. Very low. Of course it was. I knew it would be. A whisper. A message not meant for us. A message meant for home. The scientist spoke again. "We cannot read it." My stomach twisted. "It is directed," he said, "toward Jupiter." Of course. Jupiter. The relay. The giant antenna. the place the object had aimed for from the beginning. The message was being sent. Slow, soft, precise. I felt dizzy. This was it, the moment, the truth. 3i Atlas was reporting back, telling them about Earth, telling them about us, about everything it saw, everything it learned, everything it collected, fragments included, and there was nothing we could do, nothing at all. The broadcast continued. The burst has ended, the scientist said. I sat frozen in my chair, silent, still. The object is now leaving the solar system, he said. My eyes blurred. It was gone, just like that. Gone. But the fragments were not gone. They were still here, all around us, waiting. For what? I didn't know. For who? I didn't know. But the last line the scientist spoke before the signal faded made my whole body go cold. We may receive a reply. Someday. A reply. From where it was going. From whoever sent it. From whoever listened. I closed my notebook slowly. My hands were shaking. This was not the end. It was the beginning. A new story. A new fear. A new future. A future that was already here. A future that might already be watching us. I stepped to the window, looked at the stars, and whispered, "We are not alone." Then I whispered something quieter, something only for myself. And now, they know about us. If you want to walk with me through whatever comes next, stay with me, stay watching, and subscribe so you do not miss the next signal.